What's going on, everybody, and welcome to part 6 of the Django web development in Python tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be talking about incorporating users into our web app. So to start, Django actually has a user model for us. We could make our own user model as well. It's just that their user model is good enough to get started with. So the first thing I'm going to do is python manage.py, and we're going to go into the shell. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is bring in the user model. So that's from django.contrib.auth.models. We're going to import the user model. Now we can learn a little bit about the user model by just doing a dir user. So here, other than the dunders and stuff like that, you can see coming down here, there's a bunch of methods and attributes, things like check password, you could delete. Although I will say, if I recall right, deleting a user in Django is like you mark it as deleted. You don't actually delete. It's for you GDPR fellows. Continuing along, we've got attributes like last login, blah blah blah. You've got things like their name, you can set their password, what is their username, blah, blah, blah. There's just a bunch of attributes and methods that Django just has already done for us. And then if we wanted, we could build our own custom user model that inherits from this model. I just don't know that I have any use for that just yet, especially because would you do that? Or like, for example, on pythonprogramming.net, I wouldn't mind pairing usernames on pythonprogramming.net with usernames in the Discord channel. But I'm not sure I would put that in the user. I would probably create another database because not everyone is going to have a Discord. Probably most of the users won't have a Discord username. So would I want a whole field dedicated to that? No, probably not. Instead, I would have some sort of related database where the user ID is the shared key, let's say, between those two databases, or not databases, sorry, database tables. I think that would be the better way to do it. So anyway, you could extend this or probably just use related tables. So anyways, I think that's really all I really want to show here. Just understand that you can do things like authenticate and all that with their built-in user model. So we'll quit out of there. Now let me see, I don't even know if I left this. It looks like I did leave the site running. It's been a few days since I recorded last. Okay, so the first thing that I want us to go ahead and do is, if we want, let me just refresh this real quick. Okay, so we basically want to create first a register page. So let me also close these, we're done there. So the first thing to create a user, we need to be able to register a user. So that's the thing that we want to create first. So what I'm going to do is come into, and I'm just going to clean up a little bit here. Come into my site, main, templates, main, and we're going to copy and paste home. And then I'm going to call this register instead. And then we'll come over here. Cool. So what we want this to do is, I think what we want, let's just delete all this. Okay, so now inside the block content, we basically just want a form method equals post, because this, we're going to accept information. The user is going to post some information to us and we're going to validate it or use it to create a user in this case. So anytime we have a form, you probably want to use the following CSRF_token. This stands for cross-site request forgery token. This is just a certain attack vector where people can trick a user into doing something that they didn't think they were doing. So anyways, if you want, I put a link to it. You can also just Google cross-site request forgery to learn more about it. But anyways, we add that to protect against that. So we're going to add that token basically every time we have a form. But for now, what we want to do is, other than adding that token, we want to actually include that form. So rather than building forms in HTML, you actually just build them in in Django, basically. So you put together the form, and then you just pass the entire form, and so it's like super simple here. You don't have to actually build it yourself. Okay, so other than having the form here, maybe the other thing you might want to say is like if you already have an account, and then we'll do a loins, a login instead. Okay, so other than that, I think we're good to go. So the next thing we want to do is work on, now that we have the HTML page, we need the view to point to the HTML page. So we'll come into views.py. Right now we just have homepage. So now what we're going to do is we'll just come down here. We're going to define, and we'll call this register. And then we always pass a request. And then we're going to say form equals, and we need to import from django.contrib.auth.forms, import user creation form. So in this case, user creation form has already been created for us. We actually don't have to create this form. Possibly down the line we can extend this form, but if we don't end up doing that, just know you can. So for example, on pythonprogramming.net and most websites, it's useful to have like an email. Well, email isn't default included in the user creation form. Why might you want someone's email? Well, if they forget their password, we need to do a forgot password. And if you don't have their email, well, you're just kind of out of luck. So especially on a website like pythonprogramming.net, where people can subscribe to like +=1 for like a payment, if they forgot their password, they need some way to recover it rather than, besides just like emailing me and asking me to help them. So anyway, that's one thing you'd probably want to change. I'm not really sure why. I feel like email is like an integral thing. If anything, you should have to extend the form to like remove the email. I just don't think that makes much sense to not collect an email. But anyway, form is going to equal user creation form. Then all we're going to do is return, and we're going to return a render and request. I'm not going to say request equals request anymore. I'm going to assume you guys understand. I'm also not going to give the template. I'm not going to use the parameters until we have a new one. So the next thing is main/register.html, and finally context. In this case, it's going to be form, because we already called it form anyways. Form. It's probably a good idea to use, especially in this case, where like in this case we were doing like a attribute of the method, or we're really actually it's a object method attribute. All might be a method actually. Anyways, in this case, you know, you're just trying to make a shorthand, but anytime you're using variables that are like directly, that's like a variable to a variable, it's probably a good idea to use the same name. Sometimes I don't, but it makes debugging pretty hard when you're like over here and you're using some variable name for that variable, and then you're coming over here, and if it's the same, it's like super simple, quick to find and understand what's going on. Especially like right now, our functions are pretty short, but in time you might have a pretty big one, and anyway, that could get pretty crazy pretty quickly. So try to name it the same thing is probably a good idea. Okay, so once we've done that, we've got the view, the HTML template. We didn't actually really need to do the modeling because the model already exists. Like the user model is already created in Django, so that's fine. So, and in fact, when we did our first migrate, you probably saw some of the user and the admin stuff, so that was already done. So now we just need to do the final step, which is controller, so in urls.py. So now we just need to add a path to register, and then when someone hits register, views.register, and name might as well just be, you guessed it, register. Okay, I think we're all set. So let me come over here. Refresh. Oh, current path, register. Really? Pretty sure it does. What? Register. Visa. What am I doing wrong here? I feel like there's got to be a typo, but I'm like staring right at it. Register, register. Really? Are you sure? I'm just going to rerun the server, but that can't be it. What? No. Let's see. My site main URLs up high. Oh my gosh, this is killing me. Possible. Let me come back over here. Oh, I see what I've done. Okay, so it should just be register, no slash. If you were going to do register and then, like, I don't know, admin or something like that, you would have a slash, or you can have a following slash. But in this case, actually, I think we can get away with straight register like that. Right. But if there happened to be a following slash, I bet this hits an error. It does. So instead what you would have to say is actually register slash. And let's see if that should handle that. And, okay, and without the slash. So it's just like, we'll add a slash. Might be a good idea to always like end with a trailing slash, except in the case here, I believe. I don't think that will work for the home page. Let's check. Yeah. Okay, so here, homepage, don't add that, but probably always add the trailing slash, be my guess. We'll keep playing. At least in Flask, that's the way to go about it. In this case, I'm not actually confident that's always going to be true. Okay, so here's our form. Again, we didn't really do much, and we can see that some of this stuff, like the underlines and stuff, that's all materialized CSS. You can change that. Like I don't know how well that's coming up on the video, but it's like a teal background or a teal underline, or maybe it's cyan. It's probably teal though. Anyway, you'd probably want to change that. I'm not going to worry about that. I don't want to spend too much time on styling with you guys, except this is a little annoying to me. We're going to fix that. It's going all the way to the frickin' edge. Yikes. So what we're going to do is go to the header. So templates, header.html, and for the block content, we're going to encase this in a container. So we're just going to say div class equals container, and then we'll come down here, close that div, tab that over, save, come back here, let's refresh. Much better. And this is relatively dynamic, so it won't always have like that much space on the side. So let's say you're on like mobile or something like that, it does squish it up pretty good. The other thing we might want to do is add a couple breaks right before the block content, just because we might want to have like a break between the nav bar and like whatever content we have. So maybe that looks a little better. I said I wasn't going to style. Here we are styling. We're done. Okay, so now what I want to do is, this form is great, but there is no way, like if I do this and this, let's see if enter works, but I don't think it would. Right. There's no way to actually submit the form. So also login probably should be bold. I'm just going to fix that real quick. I'm not going to style, he said. Strong. And strong. Let's refresh. Make sure that worked out good. There we go. Okay, so we need to be here anyway. So we need a way to submit the form. And I'm trying to, I think in this case, to submit a form, all you would need to have is a submit button. So button, style, or not, sorry, I think it should be, is it class? I think it's type submit. I don't think it would be class submit. And then we'll call, I don't know, register button. I'm trying to think of what the, Let me just save that real quick and see if we get a default, but yeah, ooh, that's pretty ugly. Enter the same password as before for, I think that's just a pop-up actually. Ooh, okay, there's a couple of things we need to fix here, but first let me fix this button. So button type submit class equals, I think we can just say btn for materialize. Let me just refresh real quick. Okay, cool. So we could change this later, like for example, you could say style equals background color yellow. This might make a pretty putrid yellow. Woo! Oh my gosh. And then, what is it, a semi? I always forget on style. Yeah, I think it's a semicolon. Is it? Yeah. And then color, we'll say blue. That's good enough. I'm gonna let that slide for now. Okay, so now we can register. Okay, so there's really only a couple other things here. The part of the issue is our form is a little challenging to like quickly run through. Like most people understand, it's username, password. Okay, we confirm the password and we register. But for whatever reason, password is like over here. I'd like that to be on a new line. Like this form is a little funky looking. So you could say form, and I don't know what the default is, but you can have a form, and then it has a couple of attributes. One can be as P. One is I'm trying to think of what they are. Let me hold on. Let me look. It's as paragraph. All right. So as paragraph. So P for paragraph. So it's as if everything's in paragraph tags, which is what we want. So if I refresh, it's more organized now. It's a lot easier to quickly read. So in web development, there is this. Someone could understand this form, but just at a quick glance, there's just something wrong with it. And in web development, all these there's little things that make huge changes to how people behave on your site. And like the thing that makes a person leave your website, it can be the most minuscule things. And the things that keep people coming back to your website can be the most crazy minuscule things. And the things that you think are absurd to get like more people to like click a thing or take an action, the things that you might think that's silly, I can't believe I have to do this, but it does. It just makes a huge difference. So anytime you can make things styled a little better, like our colors really suck. We've got like at least 3 colors on this page now, probably 4 including the color of the register button. Again, that makes people angry. So even though it's like super subtle and you think people could probably live with it, it makes an impact on people using your website. So anyway, as P, there's also as unordered list, and then as table. We're going to go with as P, because that's good enough. Okay, so now, I think we're all set. So like, what if let's just make centex2, and then password, P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we hit register. We see nothing happens. Why did nothing happen? Well, if we come to views.py and we look at register, this request, a default request, is a get request. So as we come through here, we're just handling basically for the get request. So the problem is this form creates a post request, which is a little more dangerous. In one case, people are just trying to get the server to give them some information. In the other case, we're trying to let the user submit some information to our server, like make changes often with a post. So what we need to do now is actually handle for the post request in our register function. So the way that we're going to do that is form user creation form. Actually, I think in both cases, no, because in this case, it's like a blank form. In the other one, it's like the form from the request. So actually, this will just make totally separate. And what we're going to say here is, someone was complaining too in one of in like the first video that the text was not big enough. I've zoomed it in quite a bit, but feel free to leave a comment below and tell me if the zoom is still unacceptable. I just hate making it huge because then text runs off the screen. Anyway, if request.method is a post, is a Passat. Oh my gosh. I even got it right. Okay, if request method is post, then our form equals, and it is user creation form, but it's populated with request.post. So then what we can do is we want to check to see, is the form valid? So if form.is valid, meaning things are filled out in the way that they're supposed to be filled out. So if the form is valid, we're going to say user equals form.save. This is the equivalent of the .save for the user. So at this point, if the form was valid, so if the user doesn't already exist, all that stuff, we create the user. So form.save is the equivalent of like model.save. Okay, so boom, the user has been created. The next thing we'll do is, like, if we want to get the user name, which actually we're not going to use that right now, so forget about it. We are going to use username at some point, but I'll add that in later. So then the user is created, but generally when we register, we would like to also log that user in. Like after someone registers, we tend to automatically just log them in. It's kind of annoying when you register for a website and then you have to log in. So anyway, we can log in. And let's come up here. I think we stop at auth. So now from django.contrib.auth, we're going to import login, but we also might as well import logout. And finally, we don't need it yet, but authenticate. We also aren't going to use logout. Login logs the user in. Logout, you guessed it, logs them out. Authenticate is used to authenticate the entered password and the current password, which we also don't need yet, but we will. So form.save, basically at this point, there's no need to like authenticate or anything like that. The user's been created, so we should just log in, request user. So now the user's been logged in. Now what we can do is return, and do I have redirect? No. So from Django shortcuts, import render and redirect. Make sure it doesn't run over my face. Redirect is a way to force the user, or basically when someone gets to a certain point, you can use a redirect to tell the browser, go to this place instead. So in this case, once someone has fully registered, we don't want to just like keep them on the registration page. Instead, what we want to do is redirect them to probably the home page. So I'm going to come down here, and we'll return a redirect. And you could pass like that, right, to get them to, and actually probably that, not the slash. But I'm actually unclear on that one. I bet the slash would do it. Anyway, we're not going to do either of those. But I am curious. I'm actually kind of curious because if you link to slash, that takes them to the home page. But as we saw in Django, like urls.py, if you say slash, it doesn't correspond to anything. But that's only for the urls.py. Like if you go to this, like slash, that'll take you to the home page. I don't know. Anyway, not part of this tutorial, I suppose, but someone can feel free to test it. Anyway, what's cool here is you can redirect people to basically, remember when we did app? So, gosh, where even was that? Probably urls.py. Yeah. So the app name, main, we did that because I told you can have these like kind of dynamic or variable names. So instead of saying, hey, I want to go to this exact URL address, instead what we can say is, I actually want to go to main homepage. So these paths could all change, and they probably will change, especially if, like in this case, they're not going to change because they're our app. But in the case where other people make apps that other people use, the URLs are going to need to change probably, right? So in this case, they can, which is super cool. So anyways, we're going to say redirect to main : homepage. And that, like I said, will go into urls.py, finds the one that's main, and actually probably when your website is compiled. Actually, I don't know the answer to that one, because as we add more paths, we probably aren't going to need to restart the website. So I guess it would just always be checking. Anyway, finds main, then finds homepage, sends them there, which I think is pretty darn awesome. Okay, so all right, so if the form is valid, we do all that, return a redirect, awesome. Otherwise, if the form is not valid, what we can say is for message, and in this case it's form.error messages. We'll just print form.error messages message. So this is a dictionary, this is your key, and we're just going to iterate over all the keys and get the actual message itself. And we're just going to print for now. This is not a long-term handling here, but we're just going to do it. So now we are going to, basically in this case, we would actually just come back down here and re-render register, so that should be fine. So I think we're all set. Let's refresh. Let me make this big enough so we can register. We will make a CentDex2 P123456 P123456 and register. We don't need to save. Great. So let's check. Let's go into admin. So that user, so it thinks we're definitely, so we are logged in and authenticated as CentDex2. CentDex, I don't remember when I made my password. Ooh, I got it right. Anyway, come into users and we can see a new user has been created. They are not staff. We'll click on them. We will click on them. Okay, we got a password. We got nothing else though, which it makes sense because that was our form. Cool. Okay, so we've got a user that has been registered. But now we've got a couple of issues that we've already found. First of all, like for example, let me come back over here. Let's go back to register. And let's just say that we do this. In this case, the user isn't notified as to like what went wrong. Okay, and then once the user actually registers and they're logged in, they have no idea that they're logged in, so nothing has changed up here. We just have, we're not really informing the user of anything that's going on. so in the next tutorial, that's what we're going to be working on is, basically allowing the user to see what changes have been made, and then possibly we'll log in, handle log out. We'll see if we have the time. So anyways, that's it for this tutorial. Quick shout out to my most recent channel members, Richard, Fan, Harsoth, Piotr, and Sud here. Thank you guys very much for your support. As always, guys, questions, comments, concerns, whatever, feel free to leave them below. Text-based tutorials in the description. Come hang out with us in Discord, discord.gg/Centex. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in another video.